It's November 4th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Badenoch. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with the U.S. presidential election. It's still too close to call, with a Democratic candidate Kamala Harris and a Republican counterpart Donald Trump remaining in a tight race in these 7 battleground states, with only 2 days to go until Election Day on Tuesday. South Korea is launching a Nat'l Bio Committee next month as a part of its project to transform the country into one of the world's 3 leading powers in science and technology by the end of the decade. South Korea's T1 continues its legacy by securing its 5th League of Legends World Championship title after crushing China's Bilibili Gaming in London. In just about 48 hours, millions of Americans will head to the polls to choose the next U.S. president. And again, it'll be all about which candidate can steal the hearts of voters in these 7 swing states. An Sung-jin reports.
Democrat candidate Kamala Harris and Republican candidate Donald Trump are pushing their final messages to voters. The race for the White House is neck and neck as the election polling average as of November 3rd shows that Harris is at 47.9%. Only 1% ahead of Trump. This is why the 7 battleground states are even more crucial this year. Looking at the same polling survey, Trump is ahead in 5 swing states, including Pennsylvania, while Harris is winning in Michigan and Wisconsin. In the U.S. presidential election, the winner is not the candidate that receives the most votes across the country. Instead, each state is worth the number of votes in the Electoral College, with that number varying based on population. There are a total of 538 Electoral College votes up for grabs, so candidates need to reach 270 to win. The 93 Electoral College votes in the 7 swing states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Georgia, North Carolina, Arizona, and Nevada, are key to winning the election. Pennsylvania, with 19 votes, is especially important, and both candidates have been focusing time and funds there, as they also expect to allocate their last day of campaigning at this battleground state. For Harris, the most likely way to reach 270 votes is securing the 3 northern states which are known as the Blue Wall: Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Meanwhile, for Trump, garnering votes from the Sun Belt states and Pennsylvania would give him the highest chance of winning. For this year's presidential election, early voting has seen a high turnout rate as well. According to the election lab at the University of Florida, up to November 3rd, more than 70 million Americans have already cast their ballot. The number is set to further increase as mail ballots start to come in. Most states allow the opening of early mail ballots before the election day, yet 7 states only begin counting votes on the day of the election, so it may take a couple of days till the final winner is announced. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
Israeli airstrikes aimed at 2 northern Gaza towns and a refugee camp killed at least 31 people on Sunday, according to Palestinian officials who also accused Israel of trying to create buffer zones in the region. Israel said the attacks were a part of efforts to stop Hamas regrouping. Gaza's health ministry says 43,341 Palestinians have been killed since October 2023. Also on Sunday, the Israeli military announced a military operation in Syria led to the capture of a spy linked to an Iranian terrorist organization. Israel says the Syrian national have been collecting intelligence on the Israel military in the border area. South Korea is restructuring its policies and support for innovation, aiming to produce world-leading research in science and technology. Now, next month, it'll launch a committee focusing on biotechnology. Oh Soo-young has more.
South Korea will launch a Nat'l Bio Committee next month, as it aims to become one of the world's top 3 leading powers in science and technology by the end of the decade. That's according to Senior Presidential Secretary for Science and Technology Park Sang-wook on Sunday, as he shared the government's plans to reform research and development. With last week's cabinet meeting passing a decree to establish a National Bio Committee, Park said President Yoon Suk-yeol will preside over the body, which will aim to connect various ministries to seamlessly support the biosector's value chain, from basic research to clinical trials and commercialization.
The biosector is already a game changer, transforming industries such as healthcare, agriculture, energy, environment and materials with immense ripple effects that are also drawing attention from a security perspective. We aim to establish a robust linkage system between the newly created Strategic Technology Committees and the National Science and Technology Advisory Council, our highest science and technology policy body.
Led by a leading scientist in biotechnology, Lee Sang-yup, as vice chair, the committee will consist of members of the private sector, academia and hospitals, and help foster the convergence of IT and biotech, as well as the utilisation of health data and artificial intelligence. The Yoon administration has identified 3 game-changing fields: AI, bio, quantum, along with space. With the launch of the National Space Council and the Presidential Committee on AI earlier this year, the Nat'l Bio Committee and the Quantum Strategy Committee will also soon be launched to advise the Yoon administration's mid to long-term policies. Promoting stronger policy coordination and budgetary support across these fields, Seoul says it will keep pushing for an R&D environment conducive to innovation. It has previously declared it aims to become a top 3 global power or G3 country in science and technology driven by artificial intelligence. The country will also launch an AI Safety Institute later this month to focus on researching the safe development of AI, safety assessment, ethics, policy and governance of the technology. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
South Korea, the U.S. and Japan held joint air drills over the weekend in a show of force after North Korea launched a new ICBM last week. Now, can the drill send an ultimate warning to the regime? Let's turn to Dr. Bong Young-sik this morning. Welcome.
My pleasure.
So Sunday's combined drill involved at least one B-1B bomber. The question is, how threatening is this drill to North Korea actually?
Well, from North Korean standpoint, it is very threatening because North Korea's air defense is so porous in response to any air drills by South Korea, Japan, and the United States. It is very revealing that when 3 times drones, whose origin still unknown, have penetrated the air defense system of the capital city of Pyongyang, right above the office of Kim Jong-un, North Korean air defense system did not detect them. Then imagine that if the B-1B bomber or other strategic bombers or jet fighters would penetrate into the air defense system of North Korea. So this drill that mobilized not only B-1B strategic bomber that can reach in 2 hours from Guam to any part of Korean Peninsula, alongside with the South Korea's F-15K and FK-16 fighters, U.S. Air Force F-16s and Japan's F-2 jets. North Koreans have many reasons to be really concerned about.
Oh, Dr. Bong, we also have to talk about North Korea's Foreign Minister Choi Sun-hee's visit to Russia. Now, the top diplomats of North Korea and Russia claim to have, elevated their relations with the new treaty that comes with a provision committing to mutual military aid in the event of an attack on either side. Now, would you say this is their way of justifying the North's, troop deployment to Russia?
Definitely. Although neither side has admitted North Korea's deployment of its armed forces to Russia,
right,
to aid the war effort of Russia in the Ukraine war, they have been trying so hard to put the legal frame and legal justification on that. It is very interesting that Russian ambassador to South Korea, in his meeting with the South Korean governments, that there's nothing South Korea has to worry about because everything is made within the bounds of international law. Mm-hmm. And his opinion was seconded by, Foreign Minister of Russia, that whatever has been happening, that is not in violation of international law. The Russian government's reference to international law is directly linked to the Article 4 of the treaty that you mentioned, the Treaty of Strategic and Comprehensive Partnership signed between Vladimir Putin, Russian president, and Kim Jong-un, the supreme leader of North Korea, which stipulates that military assistance provided by one party of the treaty if the other party is under attack by one country or a coalition of countries, according to the Article 51 of the United Nations Charter that stipulates the right of self-defense. That explains why North Korean soldiers have been mobilized, not at other parts of the battlefield between Russia and Ukraine, but Kursk. Because technically speaking, and if you buy into the Russian argument, Kursk is the Russian territory temporarily occupied by Ukraine troops. So deploying North Korean armed forces to other battlefields may be criticized as a violation of the international law. But since that part of the battlefield is a Russian territory, Russia and North Korea can justify their military cooperation in the name of mobilization and activation of Article 4, because technically speaking, Russia is under attack.
Well, so what you're saying is that North Korea's deployment to Kursk region was a well strategically planned, idea. Now, like you mentioned, there was no official mention of the troop deployment to Russia. The question is, will the two sides remain silent as they are on the matter, do you think? Or will they ever, recognize or realize the deployment publicly?
Well, eventually with time, there will be a de facto recognition of the military assistance, provided by North Korea to Russia. But both sides are taking time. And North Korea, by sending Foreign Minister Choi Sun-il to Moscow, is trying to get as much benefits and concession from Russia as possible, because utility of North Korea will evaporate once the war between Ukraine and Russia will be over. North Korea's importance to Putin's Russia is only as long as Russia is in this war. So there's a great deal of pressure on the part of Kim Jong-un government to get as much concession based upon the strategic and comprehensive partnership between the two countries as possible before the war ends. And both sides are eagerly looking at the outcome of the presidential election in the United States, because after the election is over and the new leadership of the United States will be determined for the next 4 years, there's a high possibility that Ukraine and Russia will be under mounting pressure to agree upon ceasefire. That is why Russia is so desperate to invite North Korean armed forces so that it would occupy as much territory as possible before ceasefire agreement will be under negotiated.
Well, Dr. Bong, speaking of the United States, according to Russia and North Korea, the U.S. and its allies are, the ultimate problem, calling them troublemakers that escalate tensions on the Korean Peninsula and beyond. What is this reasoning here? I mean, shouldn't Russia and North Korea be blamed for their actions?
Well, the United States put blame on Russia and North Korea as a revisionist power for escalating tensions on the Korean Peninsula. Having said that, it is another matter for the United States to choose what it regards the most optimal response to the developing situations on the Korean Peninsula. So depending upon the outcome of the presidential election, the choice of U.S. strategy toward the Korean Peninsula will be quite different. If Kamala Harris wins the election, then it is more likely for the new U.S. government to inherit the same type of strategy since the Biden administration. But if Trump wins, then it will be opting for the direct, negotiations with the leaderships of Russia and North Korea. So we are in a very different, bifurcated situation.
Definitely. Alrighty, Dr. Bong, thank you so much for sharing your insight with us this morning. You have a wonderful day.
You too.
South Korea's T1 won its fifth League of Legends title on Saturday, defeating China's BLG. Now, T1 captain Faker was again named the final MVP. Lee Seung-jae has more.
At the League of Legends World Championship Final in London's O2 Arena on Saturday, South Korea's T1 captured its fifth title, cementing its status as the best team in the game's history. However, the ultimate decider wasn't as easy as T1's route to the final. China's Bilibili Gaming, or BLG, won the first game before T1 leveled it with a second map victory. BLG won Game 3, putting them a win away from capturing the title, but T1 ended up coming from behind to take the next 2 games to clinch the title 3-2. The victory also meant a 5th title for T1 in 7 trips to the finals. And for League of Legends superstar Faker, whose real name is Lee Sang-hyuk, it also solidified his status as the greatest to ever play the game, having played a part in all 5 titles. He was also named the finals MVP. But Faker is far from done, as he vowed to come back next year to add even more silverware to his glittering career. Along with bragging rights from winning an unprecedented 5th championship title, the team also takes home $445,000 in prize money. 이승재, Arirang News.
The work of author Han Gang, who won the Nobel Prize for Literature this year, can be recognized globally, all thanks to translators who put the pieces in different languages. Our Song Yujin spoke to Yoon Sun-mi, who translated Han Gang's The Vegetarian into Spanish.
When Professor Yoon Sun-mi heard about Han Gang's Nobel Prize win, one thought stood out.
It's sparking strong curiosity among international publishers of Korean literature. This could lead to a greater demand for translators.
Professor Yoon, who grew up in Argentina, is one of Korea's first literary translators and has nearly 30 years of experience. In 2012, she introduced Han Gang's The Vegetarian to Spanish-speaking readers, marking the book's first Western language translation. For her, translation is more than just switching words to another language.
You're conveying hidden meanings, intentions, and symbolic nuances. You have to understand the author's purpose, the character's psychology, and how readers will interpret it. It's like conducting an orchestra, balancing all these elements for a translation that's faithful.
Since 2010, Professor Yoon has been nurturing future translators as an instructor at the Literature Translation Institute of Korea's Translation Academy.
South Korea is unique in having a government-backed institution for training literary translators. A recent amendment to the Literature Promotion Act even proposes graduate programs in literary translation, showing a growing recognition of the need for experts to introduce Korean literature worldwide.
With courses in 7 languages, the Academy enrolls around 150 students, 90% of whom are international, and covers more than just books. Students also translate webtoons and films.
Since we are having to be in contact with Korean literature, we get to meet some writers, and we have an amazing library here. We can read a lot of books. So
I think I like to translate novels in a way that brings them closer to the Spanish readers.
Despite these opportunities, translating is still a challenging path.
Translation grants haven't increased since I started 30 years ago, so it's tough to make this a full-time career. I tell my students to consider translation as a side job. Breaking in is also hard. The Daesan Foundation is the only place new translators can apply for work, as most publishers prefer established names.
Thus, it's time to come up with some solutions.
We need more platforms where translators and publishers, both local and international, can connect. Creating opportunities for new translators through these platforms, or requiring the use of rookie translators for projects, even small ones, would give them practical experience to build a full-time career.
A powerful translation gives literature a new dimension. With efforts like these, Korean literature could reach readers far and wide. Song Yujin, Arirang News.
Now, let's take a look at the stories from around the world with our Kim Xiang. Good morning, Xiang.
Good morning, Dami.
Spain's flash floods have become the deadliest in the country's modern history. Now, with its monarch under scrutiny, what's the latest?
That's right, Dami. It's been almost a week since torrential rain triggered mass flash floods in Spain's eastern region of Valencia, which have become Europe's worst flooding disaster since 1967. Spanish authorities confirmed 217 deaths from the disaster up to Sunday. Now, amid ongoing rescue and recovery operations, Spain's king and queen were in Valencia on Sunday, where residents vented anger for the lack of alerts and late response from public services when the floods first hit. Hundreds of protesters threw mud and other objects at King Felipe and Queen Letizia as they faced the public during a visit to Payporta, one of the worst affected towns in Valencia. Residents shouted shame and murderer directly at the royal couple and Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, saying that the leaders do nothing, while another said, "They left us to die, we've lost everything." On Saturday, Prime Minister Sanchez deployed 10,000 additional soldiers, civil guards and police officers to the area, while acknowledging that severe problems and shortages meant the measures were not enough. Now, Spain's weather agency issued its highest level of warning again on Sunday, as intense storms were forecast in parts of southern Valencia, with 90 millimeters of rain expected. The UK's Conservative Party has elected Kemi Badenoch as its new leader on Saturday, making her the first black woman to head a major British political party. 44-year-old Badenoch won 57% of party members' votes in the final round, beating former Immigration Minister Robert Jenrick. Badenoch has been a Conservative Member of Parliament since 2017 and has held several cabinet roles, including Trade Minister. She now takes over from former Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and faces the challenge of bringing back the Tories, who suffered a huge defeat in July's general election, where they lost over 200 seats. Badenoch is known as a hardliner with anti-woke values and said the election was lost because the Conservatives talked right but governed left, promising that her party will get back on track and stop acting like Labour. High levels of air pollution in India and Pakistan are forcing authorities to take emergency measures, with penalties issued in India and school closures in Pakistan. Pakistan's second-largest city, Lahore, recorded its highest ever air pollution reading at 1,900 AQI near its border with India on Sunday, according to data from local government and Swiss's IQ Air. On the same day, officials in Pakistan's Punjab province announced measures including a one-week-long closure of primary schools and making 50% of office employees work from home. Delhi in India has been shrouded in thick toxic smog as well, with additional pollution from firecrackers and lights during recent Diwali celebrations. A report by the Energy Policy Institute at the University of Chicago says toxic air can shorten the lives of Delhi residents by 8.5 years. The Los Angeles Dodgers baseball team celebrated its World Series victory with a parade in downtown Los Angeles on Friday. Following the Dodgers' 4-1 win over the New York Yankees, the baseball team secured its 8th title on Thursday in a public parade which had been denied when they last won the title in 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic. The 2024 World Series MVP, Freddie Freeman, rode on top of one of the several double-decker buses, greeting fans who shouted his name.
Just when we are welcoming stunning autumn colors, we need to brace for an early winter chill this week. No wonder major highways and expressways were jam-packed over the weekend. Today's spotty rain will bring dramatic weather change to the country, along with strong winds. And we are expecting a rapid shift towards colder temperatures, which take shape throughout the week. Season's first cold wave advisor could be issued this week, with morning lows to drop down to as low as 2 degrees Celsius in the capital on Thursday, which is the onset of winter in the seasonal calendar. Well, today's highs will not rise much from today's morning readings. Seoul gets up to 17 degrees. Daegu tops out at 21 degrees Celsius. Well, rain lets up before lunch, then the skies will get sunnier, but highs will be 1 to 5 degrees lower than Sunday in most parts of the country this afternoon. Now, the East Coast could see rain tomorrow. Temperatures then will try hard to go above norms by the weekend. Well, that's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. Have a wonderful start to the week.